Yes, there we are.
Hi everyone.
Looking pretty good there. Hello, it's me, Laura Jane, or LJ. And let's see where the actual camera is. I guess the actual camera's like right down here. So
This is live.
yes, and we are live here, and we're doing this on Facebook, and then we're going to definitely be recording it so that it gets shared if you don't get to be here. But I'm super honored to be here in this beautiful space of Revitalize Rehab Club up in charming Bixby Knolls of Long Beach, one of the more beautiful neighborhoods of Long Beach, don't you think? And this is Dr. Dawn Ngo, who I just in the last few months, we were so fortunate to connect through a student, client, patient member that we're both got to work with. Tova, who we love. If you come on, Tova, we appreciate that, right?
Yeah, shout out to Tova.
But she knew that we should meet because in her healing journey, she realized how aligned we are, but yet bringing our own expertise in wanting to help people heal themselves, right?
Yeah.
And restore body function, get back to life, enjoy life in potentially maybe a more holistic way and definitely innovative way. Although Dr. Dawn is traditionally trained in lots of ways, and I've got some traditional background myself. But we both had a good time of integrating East and West. I don't know if you're comfortable with that description.
Yeah.
So we're here, and we're going to talk about something that's kind of a leap for both of us. But yes, so this is Dr. Dawn, and I'm super excited to be here with you.
Likewise. No, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, and what would you like people to know about you as a practitioner these days? If you have like your few minutes description of how you like to approach how you're working with people these days.
Good question. So, a description I like to think is just a practitioner that really brings a practical mind-body approach, and doing whatever it takes, being relentless, being an advocate for the person, the client, the member, just to get them active, because I think that's very important for our soul to be active and to move, and just being relentless, just being an advocate. So
Wow.
Using a mind-body approach.
Yeah, and I love how you said that you feel like the being active is important for someone's soul. That feels really like innovative to me, and so aware that that's part of why we want to get back to moving, not just because we like should exercise, right?
Yeah.
Or because we're going to fall apart if we don't even, but not only are we going to feel better, but it just is part of enjoying life and the soul being happy. So, wow.
Yeah.
So I think that just gives you a little window in how Dr. Dawn is really bringing something new and different, even as he does have the traditional training. And do you want to tell us, what do you want to tell us about your training that you feel like has really been a part of what you're doing now? Because I'm sure we might as well give you a chance to answer that.
Yeah.
As far as some of your learning towards now.
So my background of credentials, I like to say I wear 3 hats. One is doctor of physical therapy, orthopedic background. So basically that's muscle joints, understanding how that works and getting people to stay active. And then my second hat is a sports medicine one. So that's to understand what it takes to keep someone moving, get someone moving. And then along the way, I realized that was enough. There's a certain pocket of people that I couldn't really serve well. And so understanding how everything works together, appreciating the mind, the soul components. It's the holistic part, holistic medicine. So those are the 3 hats I wear. Then I like to add dad, son, husband.
Yes.
So that's a hard one to wear.
Yeah, that's where the real practice is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
but that's part of your. I know that's part of your being able to come to your workplace here and give your best self is because you're also making sure your life is fulfilling and that you're building in what's important and having daddy days and things like that, right?
Yes,
yeah, that like you're walking the talk
yes.
of the soul being happy, which actually I think is pretty different as a doctor, right? As a practitioner, because a lot of us have heard the story of the doctor who doesn't get any time with their family, whose health themselves is out of balance because they're so other focused. So I'm glad that it comes up because you're really walking the talk of it starts with you, so you're doing that too, right? That you're not just ignoring your life so you can serve others. So I love that. That is progressive medicine, right? And what helps you be the kind of inspiration you could be even to someone, right?
Well, it allows me to be empathetic, to understand that even though I say that, there are easy days and hard days and days when it's more of a practice. And so understand that and not being judgmental in front of a client saying like, you got to do this, but in reality, not giving them the tools or the habits. And so I think that's the reason why we're kind of talking about the psychology of healing, because that's I think something that we're not trained as a medical practitioner. We do have a couple courses, but nothing to put it into a practical approach for the client. So so it just allows me to take the empathy to another level.
Wow, yeah, I love that you said
at least I try.
At least I think. To include the psychology is an empathetic thing to do, not a manipulative thing to do. That's really an important distinction. And yeah, I love that when I brought up this idea of what if we did this first talk on the psychology of healing, you turned to me like, you weren't sure you were an expert enough to talk about that because, you're not necessarily, you think you're not trained in psychology. And maybe because I did get to go to graduate school in psychology and then transition into yoga, which now I see and teach, right, is such a form of psychology more than anything. But yeah, I was really struck seeing the psychology you're bringing and integrating into what you're doing. In that, like, for instance, I discovered that you have these really cool assessments that you have people take because you want to learn more about their personality style and their belief systems even, right? And to me, that means like psychology as you're wanting to help them. And that you're including that alone, told me that you are bringing something new and different with the psychology of healing. So that's where I thought it would be fun for us to take the leap of what we're seeing about the psychology of healing and talk about that here with you all who winds up, soaking this up. And our intentions with this is really just to be of help and allow through what we're working with and noticing and discovering and sharing and realizing. And if that could be of help to you or anyone you love, please share this conversation. So first of all, do you want to tell us a little more about those assessments that you've decided you like to use, that some of the ones that I know about anyways, with the mindset that you're assessing as part of your initial assessment? Is that usually day one with someone?
It is day one. Well, the background of that is before I like to consider I'm good at reading people. And to help understand where people are coming from. But then I felt, so that's part of the intuition component. But the research shows that if we use our intuition, there's a little bit of a bias that, and then unless we are constantly reflecting and analyzing ourselves and seeing if we are being true to being the Hippocratic Oath of doing no harm, I realized that maybe I could take a more scientific approach. So then that's where it just happened because I was asking that question a lot during my practice. And came across two very simple psychology questionnaires. And it really helps me to identify how to help people. And so I had LJ because as we're building a working relationship, I wanted to understand who she is and how to cater to her so then that way we could so it could serve her needs the best. And so the two come from, I think, like not the father psychology, but really good master psychology, Tony Robbins. And so he talks about there are 6 fundamental needs in his TED Talks and a lot of his foundational work. And understanding who's in front of me, what their needs are, allows me to cater to that. And the next one is Gretchen Rubin. She talks about tendencies. So she's known for the Happiness Project. And so understanding people's tendency allows me to, for exercise prescription, allows me to understand who's in front of me, what are the tendency, because I can have magic hands or I can know everything. But if I can't help the person in front of me continue to do the exercise, to build a habit, to shift change, whatever it is, to be confident in themselves, and their tendency takes over, then I'm not helping them long term. So I love that one because it allows me to be one step ahead and helping understanding, say, your tendency and helping you to understand your tendency. And so that really has been very powerful for exercise prescription, just to get that next level of permanent care. So needs and a tendency are the two.
Okay.
So there are others, but they get very lengthy, and so those are very quick 20-question ones. And so I like those really well.
Yeah. Wow. And I love, though, how you talk about that, you're going for permanent care. That's a great term. And that, I think that's where you and I align in our approaches with helping others, which does involve that psychology, is that we're really wanting to help people make it about a lifestyle change, probably, right? And how they're caring for themselves, responding to their symptoms maybe that brought them to us in a way that can be about making some of those shifts long term, right? That'll help solve it and get someone back to life, right? But you and I both know how important it is that someone's invested in it, that they eventually has to become, that they're a partner in the process, right? And that they're owning it. I like to say with hashtag owning it. And that it does become about what they're doing more like every day for the rest of their lives, right?
Yeah.
So that's where it is so important. And I see that too with the psychology that's involved in that process of healing alone, right? When it can be about the daily work and a long-term approach, but the psychology involved to embrace that and even be willing to see that it's the role you are going to play with your body, right, and your health, and not just what someone else is going to do to you, right? Which I just made a video the other day, and I think it was in being with you more, thinking about, I think one of the big differences is between a more holistic approach and traditional is that the holistic perhaps invites and even expects the patient or the client or the student to be the partner in the medicine and to be the one who eventually is going to be doing the work, that you're not looking outside yourself for the answers so much. And even that you start to look inside yourself for the answers, right? So, and that is what can lead to permanent care. Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah. Anything else you want to say along those lines?
Yeah, so what LJ talks about is the giving the habits, the tools for someone to get the lasting relief from whatever it is, whether it's chronic health or pain relief. I realize that a lot of people lack the tools because it's very and so just understanding that, and then it's like my responsibility to understand what are those tools that will help the patient succeed, and so that's why I really like the Gretchen Rubin tendency book, and so
Yes. Would you be willing to share a story? I know one that you told me about with Tova, which you'd probably be willing for you to share. Just how you work that into your therapy, like with the psychology, honoring someone's tendency, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Tony Robbins has 6 needs. So connection, certainty, growth, significance, contribution, and uncertainty. So understanding, so it doesn't matter if you're a certainty person and you come asking for help, if I don't cater to that need, then I'm not mindful and aware of that need, then you will not likely, there's going to be more resistance, less follow through. So I have to communicate in a way where there's a lot of certainty. So certainty are the people who are very black and white. It's either A or B, and so I'm a certainty guy. And so when my family needed medical attention, no one gave me certainty, and everyone gave me a lot of uncertainty. So it really drove my mind crazy. And so I have a saying where our body follows mind. So it didn't allow my family to get that next level care. And so for this kind of story, hers is connection. So just understanding that instead of just talking like, black, white, A, B, I really made a huge effort on just connecting to her, letting her know that everything will be taken care of. All the small stuff that the research shows can add to huge, putting the odds in a client's favor. And so, because a lot of the pain science research shows that the reason why people's pain get dragged out has a lot to do with how the mind works. And so connect with the Tova was very important for me. I really had to practice my art of listening, and so my wife says I'm not a good listener, so I really had to work hard at listening, and so be very intentful, being present, giving her the whole world, not being rushed, so then that way her body is more receptive. There's less, in the pain science they call it threat, so the more threat your body perceives immediately, it will shift away from the art of true healing. So I really made a huge effort. And then in terms of Gretchen Rubin, she says there's 4 tendencies, and it's based on how we meet outer expectation and inner expectation. And so outer expectation is how we meet everyone else, our boss, our husband, our wife, our kids, whoever it is, our neighbor, our mom, our dad. And then there's inner expectation, which is how we meet ourselves. So there's 4, and I like it because it's very simple. There's only 4. And so there's, I will talk about the 2 big ones. So there's the questioner, and then there's the obligers. So obligers do really well meeting everyone's, but then they struggle to meet their own. So understanding that, it's, if I tell her go do your exercise, do it for yourself, it's very important for whatever ailment she's dealing with, or then the tendency is it's more likely she's not gonna follow through. So I'm not gonna go down that route and say, you gotta do it, you gotta do it for yourself, it's for your better health. If you're a smoker, you gotta do it for your lungs, you got, but if I shift and say, so one of the questions I ask, if I know you're a obliger, is who's the most important person? Who do you care about the most? And usually that's a revealing question, because I want to associate and tap into that person that they feel most important to. So if it's your son, if for her it's her son, her family, she really cares about her family a lot. So we just had a lot of conversation on how to serve her family the best. She's exercising so she can be the best mom, the best wife. She deeply cares about her son and her son's health. So we say, okay, well, how about you go to the gym, exercise, and tag and bring your son along. So then that way, for a fact that your son's going to get stronger and healthier as a teenager. And at the same time, here's the bonus, is that win-win, you're going to get stronger too. And so that was a lot less resistance. And she felt like she's doing it for her son, not for her. And so it allowed her to get to that next level. And so just understanding that. And so the questioner, just real quick, the questioner are just like what it sounds like. They thrive, and they will take the next level for themselves is if they understand why. So a great example is like, if you're a questioner, then I have to explain why. So then that way you understand. But in your world, you have to answer, cater to hers. So it's very important for me to shut up at times and just have her ask tons of questions, because she needs to understand in order for her to take the care. Versus a lot of practitioners, which I was down that route, like, oh, you just got to do the exercise, you gotta, and then we all get frustrated, but it just takes me to understand. So then it's part of my intuition, but also a little bit scientific, in terms of really bringing up mind body.
Yeah.
And so, because I have a little bit of time with a client and I got to demonstrate some level of result, so it just allows me to just have more data points, facts, I guess, because I'm a certainty guy. So, right.
Yeah,
so.
But that's also just amazing that you're really just continuing to aim for like giving the best results within your time, and how can I be even more effective and even more effective. And I love that growth model as a practitioner. I feel like that too is very modern, maybe, that you're even making time and space to keep learning all the time, right? And I love that I get to share. I've seen that in yoga, one of the limbs of yoga is about self-study. So it's a very yoga thing to do, to always be learning and growing and studying, and every day, maybe reading and writing. And so I've loved owning that. Is like, oh yeah, that's part of being a yogi. And then I'd love to keep integrating that more into the physical therapy that I get to do with people. I do love to share that. And I was going to say that's one of the things I loved about when I got to go through the Egoscue method training, where I got so much of how I've learned to help with pain issues mainly, that was so much about our learning to use the more like Socratic method with a client and be good at asking questions and really help the person start to really understand why they're hurting and why they're using this exercise and that, and how it's fixing it. And I love that approach. It really worked for me. And this idea that, which I think this is very yoga, and I think you come at this too, that the body knows what it needs, and that really in the end, you're the ultimate expert on your body, and we're helping you and me as a practitioner, you as the client, me as the practitioner, listen to your body more for what it's telling us it needs, right? Yeah. And I guess that's where I see with some of the psychology I'm so aware of is how much our belief systems about what's possible plays a role, right? Yeah. And what we're believing and what we're listening to and who we're listening to, right? About our health and what's possible. I feel like for you and I, we're both into like powerful possibilities, because I think you and I both have a real belief in the human body and what's possible, and then it's exciting to know now things do regenerate and how much the body is always replenishing and renewing. And so interesting to help people nowadays bring that into their psychology more, right?
Yeah.
How much do you find yourself talking about that as someone who, and how much have you been surprised from what in your traditional upbringing with what's possible, and then, starting to maybe even open up more to what you've seen is possible? Does that make sense?
So how much mine is playing a role, or how much
well, maybe both. How much, what is actually possible in healing, and then how much mind plays a role in that too. Okay. Like, has that really been has there been a big change in that from like when you first came fresh out of traditional training into now that you've added all of the things you've learned and what you've learned and done? As far as what you've actually seen possible, and then how much that mind seems to be important.
Yeah, so the mind is super important in rehab, anything we do. But going back to the first question, so I think if we could tap into the word hope, so I have a tagline, it's like dream big to move big. If we could tap into get you to believe, it's very powerful in terms of achieving whatever you want. And when I first got out of school, it's very research based. So first 5 years is, if it's not research, actually first 9 years. Remember, I was orthopedic and sports, so I thought everything had to come out of the research. And if it's not, then then a searching guide, then it's not worth putting to practice. And then I came across 5 years ago when my son was born, and then so he had chronic ailments right away with a little bit of pain, health, sleep, so everything, digestion, And so that's when I went down the rabbit hole of experiencing a lot of uncertainty, a lot of letdown, frustration. So I took that step and tried to like bring certainty to my own life by Googling, going down that rabbit hole at 2 a.m. and, trying to bring holistic lifestyle that I underappreciated. And so that was one. So when I incorporate more holistic and how everything works in mind and body, then I noticed it's less resistance. And so it's like working smart, not harder, where it's more effort for someone to in their care, in what I want to do. So I think that was very helpful. And then another part of the question, answer to that question is, in the insurance world, in modern society world, I think a lot of people are getting more, I think like with statistics, like 1 out of 2 will eventually develop a chronic health issue. So that's staggering. And so with chronic health, like heart, lung, diabetes, doctors are scared or fearful of doing surgery on certain population. And so I'll get certain clients where it's like, okay, here's a knee that is definitely candidate for surgery, but because they have heart, lung, and diabetes, you do what you do and try to help them. And I'm like, well, before I would think, okay, well, you're usually a surgery candidate, but since you're in front of me, let's be creative. And so whenever I became really creative, remember I said, I like puzzles, by the way. And so here's a puzzle, and then when I tap into the body and then the mind and how people just got better. And so it happened with me, really bad knee arthritis, really bad disc bulges, really bad hip arthritis, neck, and so I just started to believe in that more and more. And then the pain research, which kind of is looking into the brain, because the brain is the king of everything. The brain tells the body what to do, how to interpret. And the fascia research, which is the way our body interprets what our brain is expressing. It's very powerful. If you guys really Google and look into what fascia is and brain, which is the mind. But scientific is brain, how the brain works, and psychology is, how the brain interprets it.
So I feel like, because I know I've been really becoming aware of this idea that we all are storing trauma in the bodies, and that doesn't even mean we had to go through something terrible and traumatic. Like for all of us, life nowadays can kind of feel traumatic the ways that we'll perceive it, right? And so how that can be stored in the body and manifest, and then there's all these procedures to kind of free that up. And I'm so aware and loving how I see like the exercise therapy of yoga therapy can do that, right? Especially more that we're doing that every day. But would you say that like scientifically that's where the trauma is being stored, is in the fascia? If we were going to go beyond just being general, like, oh, we are storing energy that's trauma, that it may be that it's in places like the fascia, and then the patterns of holding and things that can turn into things?
So it's like neurofascia. So there's a lot of truth to what Laura Jane talks about, and so they're trying to answer. I do this in my community talks a lot about what is pain. In order to tame pain, you gotta know what pain is. So, and there's a lot of research that's validating that you're more at risk. So first, backtrack a bit. They're trying to answer questions like why both people get into a car accident, and so why someone with a tiny fender bender becomes a chronic pain or just dragged out pain, and then the other one totals a car and then has no pain, and it's the how you interpret threat is very important. And how you handle threats is very important. So threat can be stress. It could be trauma. And so the tricky part is, if I ask what your definition of threat is, it's going to be different from mine, from yours, from everyone that's watching. And so that's why it's the first, just without even putting my hands on someone, I have to understand what their beliefs of threat is. And it could come all the way down from our parents, from society's, your interpretation of what society wants you to do. And so understanding that helps me understand what I'm dealing with in front of me, and maybe I have to connect with you on a total extra level. You know, if you're a connector, if you're certainty, then I have to give you a lot more certainty and bring a lot more research, so then that way you can understand that there's more hope and shifting. There's a powerful story on this that during my experience is words play a huge role in threats, in the interpretation threat. So that's psychology. Psychology is, you know, every word plays a huge role. So I have a client that had thyroid throat cancer, and so when she came to me, her scar was so sensitive, no one could touch her scar in her neck. So and she was there for neck pain, and so after like 5-6 sessions, I think we worked on the scar, we worked on getting her stronger, but eventually I was able to like tug in the scar and make it where she wasn't sensitive. Before, first day, she's like, don't ever touch that place. And so I had to really educate her, get her to reduce her interpretation of the threat that's going to happen to her neck, and bring a lot of education to her. And so we got to a point where I was really working on her neck, really putting pressure on her neck, something that she was very afraid of. And so I asked, like, oh, so how much % better do you feel like you're at? She's like, oh yeah, I feel 90% better. You know, by the way, she's like 70 something, like mid 70s. And so she went to her doctor. Her doctor was having a bad day, and they had a good relationship. So the doctor, she's really excited to let the doctor know, like, I've come a long way, look at this, I can tug on it. And he was having a bad day, and so she said, look, we worked on the scar tissue and all that. And so he's like, oh, you know, there's no validity in scar tissue, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. And she became very demoralized, very kind of depressed, I could say. So she came to me, I could tell from her body language, and I said, what's wrong? And she says, well, actually, I feel a lot of pain, you know. And I said, what's going on? Like, you know, how much % improvement? So without even doing anything, just that word, the experience brought her down to 30%. Nothing changed. She's still strong like before. Yeah. She, you know, and so I had to educate her and bring her back up. And so so that really made me aware of my responsibility and how the mind plays a role. So that's why I keep reinforcing the body will follow the mind. And so the mind is very important, you know. And
that is such a powerful way to consider when we get diagnoses, you know, how much those words determine our destiny.
Yes.
And so that's why I think nowadays part of the psychology of healing is really deciding who you're listening to, right? And because there's lots of different opinions on healing and what's possible and aging, and what you decide is true is probably what's going to be true, right? Yeah. And so, I mean, one of the things I've loved with Who Do You Listen To is like looking at their own health and life, and you know, and is that something I want to emulate, right? But it's so powerful what we can do or not do because of what we believe with the words. And I love that you bring up learning to see pain as something that we can listen to and like such an indicator, and that as you were talking about this importance of not pushing us into more threat, you know, so that we are even less likely to receive the treatment. I'm thinking about how I love, like, with my training that I've seen work so well with so many of those things too with the body, is like the first goal is to always alleviate the symptom, you know, which to me I can see goes with helping the body get in that less threat response, right? To just help alleviate the pain by, you know, listening to it, by working with what it's telling us, right? But and never also pushing into pain, right? And really honoring that is like guidance of the body, which to me is part of the psychology of healing too, you know, that it's about rebuilding that relationship with ourselves, you know, much less our bodies, and becoming a better listener and even lover of it. And then again, how much what we believe is possible and what we decide is possible is going to be possible, you know? And I feel like there are more and more people in traditional practices sometimes getting the word that, oh, that's just because you're getting older, you know, and getting sent away with like, that's just because of your age. And I think you and I both have seen that is absolutely not true, right? That things have to happen because of your age, and everything's really possible at any age. You know, I have this 96-year-old, I still need to show you my pictures of Clyde that I got to work with, that got so disciplined with his exercises and made such changes with his posture and health. So yeah, it's exciting to hold that possibility. And again, just part of the psychology of the healing that may or may not happen, all that's playing into it, right?
So, yeah, I 100% believe that it's not age. I call it label, a diagnosis, genetics, you know, once we really tap into mind, body, and then, you know, I add soul, but soul is just, you know, that's another rabbit hole. So I just keep at mind, body right now.
Well, but I think as it's an important piece, and maybe always a big part of what's happening, you know, with our symptoms, right? It's often a call back to the body, a call back into ourselves more, a chance to reconnect with our soul, and even maybe get more into passion and purpose. And, you know, there can be so much that's going on when we have a healing crisis, right? Whether it's a car accident or an overuse injury or whatever that might, or a chronic, I mean, for sure, with a chronic illness, right? I've gotten to work with a lot of people with, you know, various conditions and seen so much shift and change with symptoms. So that's where even if you have a diagnosis, you know, whether it may be an autoimmune thing or a gland thing or an organ thing, you know, like a lot's possible, right? With how you can feel. Even if you decide you still have that label, right? You can decide whether or not you want to keep the label, but the experience can really change. And a lot of that is the psychology even though, right? Just not saying, well, that's just how it's going to be now that I've got that label. So, well, that's beautiful. Do you want to, I know you had brought out some beautiful books. Do you feel like you want to mention them at all? And probably we could just go a little bit longer for y'all.
Yeah, here's the Tendency book from Gretchen Rubin. All right, so that's a good read, you know, to understand yourself and how to communicate where the relationship around you. If you feel like you're working harder at communicating with your spouse, your kids, then that's a good one. And then there's a lot of new research on how the brain works, but bring it towards a rehab setting, but the brain in terms of learning, the brain in terms of PTSD, anxiety, depression, autoimmune, now to rehab, sports performance. You know, Phil Jackson, Lakers were okay until Phil Jackson came in, and then he brought a kind of mind-body approach to the Lakers, and then that's when they start winning. So I like to use that analogy a lot, because it's like, okay, well, why do I have to do all this? And it's like, okay, well, you know, if you want to get to the odds in your favor, then that's what Phil Jackson brought to the Lakers. And so Norman Doidge,
That's an interesting word.
Yeah.
I would not have pronounce it.
The Brain's Way of Healing. There's tons of books on brain and how brain is adaptable. And so you tap into the adaptability of our brain and our body, then anything can happen, whether it's age, genetics, a diagnosis. Even if you have like a really bad disc, really bad arthritis, and you go get 3-second opinions and they're like, okay, you need surgery. There's a lot more to do that you can do.
Yep, I know you and I have both seen amazing things with those. And I'm glad actually that we bring out the books, because I think that is a great way for us to take care of our own psychology, right? As a person in a body who, whether we're a practitioner or getting the treatment on us, that something we can do to be kind of boosting our own psychology and even choosing our psychology is by doing things like reading books, right? And filling the well with those new ideas and listening to who do you want to listen to, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where like the study, in a sense, in a playful, intuitive way, can really boost the healing because it can change, and even believing what's possible with the brain and how we can change it, neuroplasticity of the brain. So exciting news and important. And like you even mentioned, for some people, there are going to be reasons why they'll need to get even more natural with the approaches, even if they could have been a good fix without dealing with that stuff. And maybe, I think just the last thing I want to ask, maybe we could go like 2 more minutes, is like, I feel like part of psychology and a huge thing is imagination, right? Like how we're imagining what's happening with, if we're talking about a physical condition, how much that is going to either make or break what might happen, right? So if we're, and often we don't even realize that we're like ruminating and worrying and picturing the worst, right? And it becomes such a head trip versus like starting to imagine the opposite and maybe it's actually healing and restoring and replenishing. I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you find imagination something you like to encourage your clients to do visualizations or anything, or do you have any interest in that even in the future?
Yeah, so we do incorporate that in a lot of the how we learn, and in pain science they talk about the powerful effect of visualization. And so it all depends. So it goes back to, are you a connector? Are you a certainty? Are you, what are your needs and your tendency? So, and then during the interview process at the beginning, when I first see if I can help someone, then what they say, what words they use, and so what the prognosis is. So, so quick one to know if visualization is something for you is when you close your eyes, you ask yourself, okay, what do you want to do? I want to run, a marathon. And if you close your eyes and you can't visualize yourself even running, or just it's fuzzy, then that's what happens when pain is dragged out. Things get smudged in the brain. So that's a word that is used a lot. Actually, instead of being very clear image, it's smudge. So your body can't tell left from right. Your body can't tell, a precise toe pain. It's the toe pain, the tissue in the toe is smudged, so then the knee gets involved or the hip. So, and then if you add other beliefs and trauma and your interpretation of threat, then it could get really like a ball of yarn. I use that a lot, a ball of yarn, a box of wires or yarn, and it's like you have to untangle all that because that's how the fascia and the brain works together. This is like, years and years, like where people learn about this for not just, we're trying to condense it all to
it's deep,
30, 40 minutes. And so that's one thing I test. Another one that you could test is to have someone cut up a magazine of left, right, leg, arm, and then do flashcards. And if you can't tell between left and right, then you know that you're at a slight disadvantage. So when you have right shoulder pain, it can interpret as left shoulder pain. And so pain that doesn't make sense. And so then you got to visualize it. And this is not just pain, this is sports performance. So when I work with an athlete who needs to take themselves to the next level, then, if their psychological profile tells that this is what they need and this is something that caters to their need, then I'll do that. But all goes back down to a lot of the questions I asked the first day, and then the questionnaire, and then using that to their advantage to break the odds. So like you talk about, like sometimes there's no pain, not to push into pain, but if I have like a tactical, I like to call it tactical people, firemen, policemen, military, I sometimes push them really hard, but find strategic way as a sports medicine provider and really understanding how the body works. And so I will encourage them to exercise hard, because that's their identity. Is it along the way building a relationship, if they're connected, once they connect and once I can connect and they trust me, that I might give them better strategies, so sometimes I will have people kind of strategically work with pain because that's what they think is going to help. And so if they think it's going to help, unless I change the beliefs, then it's just going to be a lot of resistance. So I do that.
I mean, and I think I definitely know how much we need to have enough demand on the body to make the changes. But and I'm glad I asked about the imagination, though, because hearing your, what did you say, dream big?
Dream big, move big.
Move big. I mean, so that I think is what showed me that this dream aspect is part of your therapy. That's like you literally like dreaming what's possible. I had never heard that, though, about how we start to like lose the ability to even imagine ourselves doing the thing we want to do. I mean, I love to build that in when my assessment with people is to find out some of those things along with what's going wrong, and what's bringing them to me, maybe what they do want, what they want to get back to, what they'd love to be doing, and really building that into our why, like remember, and then to even have them start to like picture that and to see themselves, like my friend who I'm working with who's a skater surfer, to see yourself back on that skateboard, picture yourself surfing, if he's still got the connection, hopefully. Because on the other hand, if you start to picture, I just may not be able to surf anymore, or skate. And if you listen to some people, you might go down that path, right? So, but I think, it's also powerful and an exciting time to be alive, right? And to be in practice. So I know you and I are fortunate we're doing work that we love and an exciting time to be in this line of work, right? And to really let it be all about empowering people to take care of themselves, right? To not need us. I love that. You and I both align on that too, that we want to fill your well and then, empower you to be out in the world. So, well, great. That's probably a good bout. Not even sure how long we've gone, but I think it's been really some great things have come through. Anything else you want to say before we close this one?
I can say a lot of things.
I know, right?
Because it's a topic on psychology. Believe in yourself. I don't know. There's a lot of things. Just believe in yourself. Anything's possible. Truly, anything's possible. So if that's hard for you, then surround yourself with people who allows you to open up, or reach out. And so okay to reach out to someone for help sometimes. And so just like a car, because the body follows the mind. Sometimes you got to tune up the body, and then it allows the mind to move on easier, and so to feed the soul and all that. So
that you bring up the importance of supportive community, and that I realize is really fun to realize that we get to do here, as we have more group experiences and just giving people a chance to connect with other people who want to be in that belief, right? And in that hope, right? That hope, it says behind the camera, hope, love, believe, how do you dream and move? So thank you all for being here with us. And we'll make sure people can, I tagged you on Facebook so people can find you and find out ways to work with you. And I think you know how to find me because this is on my page. But yes, thank you for being with us. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
It was awesome, like I knew it would be. So I look forward to more, for sure, right?
For sure.
All right. Namaste, y'all. I'm going to close it up here. Let's see. Where is it? Darn it.
This is the hard part.
Right. On my sideways camera, I'm not sure how to close it. Where is it that I close it? Oh, there we go. Finish. It's because I have